You think driving a massive 80,000-pound rig across America is the ultimate symbol of freedom? Think again. The trucking industry is suffocating under a mountain of bizarre, infuriating legal traps designed to turn innocent drivers into federal criminals over a cup of coffee. Here are the absolute craziest trucking laws that will immediately make you question the sanity of our government. 1. Arriving at a massive warehouse with a full trailer of goods only to have dock workers demand cold, hard cash just to unload it sounds like a cheap mob shakedown. Guess what? It is actually a perfectly legal business practice called a lumper fee. Federal law totally protects warehouse crews charging drivers completely out of pocket to take the very freight their boss ordered. Why on earth is the delivery guy paying the recipient to accept their own package? It is basically government-approved highway robbery disguised as a standard daily operating expense. 2. Finding a legal spot to park a massive semi at night is an absolute American nightmare. Once designated truck stops completely fill up, exhausted drivers often pull onto highway off-ramps just to comply with strict federal sleep schedules. The trap? Almost every state heavily outlaws ramp parking. This brilliantly forces the driver into an unwinnable paradox. Keep driving and violate federal exhaustion rules, or park safely and catch a state ticket. It is a deeply cynical game of musical chairs, where the person delivering your stuff always loses. 3. Northeastern states aggressively criminalize leaving thick snow on your vehicle roof if it flies off and strikes someone. A normal guy just grabs a tiny plastic brush. Meanwhile, a commercial trailer sits almost 14 feet high, and strict workplace rules make climbing up there without a harness a fireable offense. Drivers face massive fines if the ice falls onto the highway, but risk losing their jobs if they actually climb up to clear it. 4. That digital tracker mounted on the dashboard is an absolutely merciless overlord. Parked for a federally mandated 10-hour sleep cycle? The truck cannot move a single inch. If a blocked-in colleague politely asks you to roll forward just 15 feet, the computer instantly logs it as active driving. That pathetic little scoot across the pavement completely annihilates your rest period, forcing a total restart of the massive 10-hour clock. Imagine losing an entire night of sleep just because you tried to be a mildly decent neighbor in a crowded parking lot. 5. Hauling flat-screen TVs means your driving hours get micromanaged down to the second by a digital snitch. Swap that exact same trailer for fresh corn, however, and those strict federal fatigue laws magically vanish. Apparently, Washington firmly believes that sitting dangerously close to a pile of vegetables completely immunizes a human being against sleep deprivation. Why does a load of tomatoes get a total free pass on highway safety while electronics require a military-level curfew? Does produce emit some secret anti-fatigue radiation we do not know about? 6. Florida protects its precious citrus industry with the paranoia of a heavily guarded military base. Any commercial rig crossing the state line must physically enter an agricultural inspection station. You could be transporting nothing but bowling balls or empty cardboard, yet you still wait in line to prove you are not harboring a rogue fruit fly. Bypass this mandatory checkpoint by accident, and Highway Patrol will hunt you down like a notorious bank robber. Do you think a single smuggled orange is really worth triggering a massive multi-county police chase? 7. Owning a gorgeous, expensive big rig and paying the mortgage on a suburban home does not mean they can ever meet. Many zoning boards aggressively ban truckers from parking detached cabs in their own private driveways. Your shiny vehicle gets legally classified as a commercial eyesore, forcing drivers to pay ridiculous fees for off-site parking miles away. Heaven forbid a working-class truck mildly offends the incredibly delicate aesthetic sensibilities of a manicured homeowners association. God forbid a shiny bumper ruins the neighborhood vibe, right? 8. One strong cup of coffee can literally end a truck driver's entire career. If a guy chugs a double espresso right before his required physical and his blood pressure ticks slightly over the strict federal limit, the doctor instantly slashes his license to a pathetic 3-month temporary pass. Should a highly trained professional's entire financial livelihood honestly hang in the balance just because they craved a tiny morning caffeine boost before a clinic visit? It is a wildly stressful joke masquerading as highway safety. 9. Take a massive tank full of highly flammable chemicals, and federal rules instantly ban you from taking the safest, flattest route through an enclosed mountain tunnel. Instead, the law legally demands these heavy rolling bombs reroute over steep, winding, treacherous, high-altitude passes. The government clearly prefers you risk violently sliding off an icy cliff with 10,000 gallons of explosive liquid rather than safely driving straight through a tunnel. Which disaster scenario actually makes more logistical sense to the geniuses in charge? 10. Urban planners absolutely love banning heavy commercial trucks from using the far-left fast lane. That logic sounds completely reasonable until the highway designer inexplicably places an exit ramp on the left side of the road. Suddenly, the driver must execute a completely illegal, frantic lane change across heavy, speeding traffic just to deliver your goods. It is an absolute masterpiece of city design that proudly forces a professional driver to choose between illegally cutting across 3 lanes or completely missing their required exit and driving into oblivion. 11. Forget taking the most logical, direct route straight through Atlanta if you operate a heavy rig. Local city codes explicitly forbid commercial vehicles from traveling inside the downtown perimeter without a provable local delivery. You are legally commanded to take a ridiculously long, heavily congested bypass completely around the city limits. That means burning gallons of extra diesel and wasting hours of your life purely because local politicians decided your working truck would ruin the pristine aesthetic of their daily, miserable downtown traffic jams. 12. Utah transformed interstate driving into a painfully slow, mandatory winter parade. Encounter 3 snowplows driving in a staggered formation? Passing them is a strict criminal offense for any commercial rig. You are legally bound to crawl safely behind them at whatever agonizing snail pace they deem appropriate. Sure, it is a fantastic safety measure on paper, but it completely obliterates a driver's tightly packed delivery schedule. Who actually cares about your missing next-day delivery when we have a wildly unskippable snowplow conga line to safely enjoy? 13. Man's best friend might be your worst legal enemy in New Jersey. Taking a furry companion along to fight the brutal loneliness of the open road sounds wholesome, but an unrestrained pet inside the cab lands a trucker a severe distracted driving ticket. They use the exact same harsh laws designed to stop teenagers from texting. Even if your elderly golden retriever is snoring peacefully on the passenger seat, a bored cop can completely ruin your week. Why does a napping dog magically warrant the exact same legal wrath as watching an iPad movie? 14. Dark window tint blocking the blinding afternoon sun seems like a fantastic idea, but for truckers, it is a mathematical trap. Federal rules firmly demand side windows allow exactly 70% of light to pass through. State troopers actually carry handheld light meters to scientifically prove you are a criminal. Apply a basic UV film just to protect your left arm from skin cancer, and if it blocks 71% of the light, prepare for a devastating fine. Protecting your own skin from solar radiation is apparently a massive federal crime now. 15. Colorado enforces a winter driving rule that feels like pure medieval torture. From September through May, commercial rigs traveling Interstate 70 must physically carry heavy metal tire chains. It does not matter if it is a gorgeous 80 degrees outside. If a freak storm hits and those chains are not sitting in your storage box, you get slapped with a jaw-dropping $1,000 fine. The state essentially forces drivers to haul around a loud, heavy, incredibly annoying security blanket for 9 entire months, just in case the sky suddenly decides to fall. 16. Imagine buying a heavy-duty commercial truck purely to pull your giant luxury vacation RV, only to have the government force you to permanently slap a massive not-for-hire sticker on the door. Without this highly defensive little visual declaration, highway patrols immediately assume you are secretly running an illegal, uninsured freight empire. You are literally forced to broadcast to the entire interstate that you are just a wealthy guy on a camping trip. Otherwise, DOT cops will happily fine you into absolute bankruptcy for looking a bit too professional. 17. Modern diesel engines totally rely on a magical liquid called diesel exhaust fluid to please environmental regulators. Should your tank run dry, The law literally forces the truck's computer to sabotage the engine, instantly capping your speed at a pathetic 5 miles per hour. Picture cruising down a busy interstate when your massive vehicle suddenly decides to cosplay as an electric golf cart because of a tiny emissions sensor. This brilliant rule creates an immediate, terrifying roadblock hazard just to ensure the exhaust smells a tiny bit fresher for the trees. 18. Arizona proudly features a brutal piece of legislation officially named the Stupid Motorist Law. Bypassing a police barricade and sinking a massive rig into a flooded wash earns you way more than a simple traffic ticket. The state aggressively forces the driver's company to foot the entire bill for the emergency rescue. When your silly little shortcut suddenly requires a helicopter airlift and a highly trained swiftwater dive team, that bad decision mutates into an agonizingly expensive swimming lesson. How is that for an unforgettable, pricey detour? 19. California adores annoying regulations, but their kingpin law is basically a forced geometry test. The state strictly limits the distance from the trailer pivot point to the rear axle to exactly 40 feet. Truckers constantly slide those wheels back to balance impossibly heavy loads safely, cross the state line, and simply forget to slide those wheels forward again. Highway Patrol instantly hands you a budget-destroying fine for an unapproved turning radius. Welcome to the Golden State, where a minor mathematical mistake literally costs you a small fortune. 20. Federal law treats crossing railroad tracks in a commercial rig like a terrifying game of Russian roulette. Drivers are explicitly banned from shifting gears while rolling over steel rails to prevent sudden engine stalling. Worse, if traffic unexpectedly stops and your back bumper hangs even a microscopic inch over the tracks when warning lights flash, you face catastrophic fines and instant license suspension. The government genuinely demands perfect supernatural psychic abilities to predict traffic flow before your tires ever touch the wooden ties. 21. While the rest of the modern highway system uses fast digital transponders to collect taxes, Oregon protects its borders like a paranoid medieval fortress. Out-of-state trucks lacking a pre-purchased weight permit must physically pull over, park the rig, and buy a temporary paper slip at a literal port of entry. Roll past this mandatory physical toll booth at 3 in the morning by accident, and the State Highway Patrol aggressively treats you like a heavily armed smuggler trying to cheat the king out of his gold. Welcome straight back to the 19th century. 22. Transportation officers inspect commercial tires with the obsessive intensity of a forensic crime scene investigator. The law specifically mandates that front steer tires possess exactly 4/30 seconds of an inch of tread depth. An inspector literally pokes a tiny metal gauge into the rubber to check. If one single sharp rock on the highway happened to chip away a microscopic millimeter of rubber, your entire 80,000-pound vehicle is legally grounded. A completely random, tiny pebble can literally shut down a critical cross-country supply chain in seconds. 23. Your entire physical existence gets intensely scrutinized during a commercial medical exam, but the wildly subjective sleep apnea test takes the cake. If a random clinic doctor glances at you and arbitrarily decides your neck looks slightly too thick, they legally strip your driving privileges until you pass a ridiculously expensive multi-night sleep study. Imagine losing your primary income purely because a guy with a stethoscope randomly decided your collarbone area looked a little bit too husky for his personal medical tastes. It is sheer madness. 24. Can a rainstorm actually turn you into a wanted criminal? Absolutely. Hauling an open flatbed load through a massive thunderstorm means the accumulated rainwater naturally adds hundreds of extra pounds to your cargo. Rolling onto a state weigh station completely soaked easily pushes your truck over the incredibly strict legal weight limit. You can literally be fined thousands of dollars purely because a dark cloud decided to open up while you were minding your own business. Mother Nature generously provides the water, and the state happily collects your hard-earned cash. 25. The sheer stress of total vehicle weight is nothing compared to agonizing over where every single pound physically sits. Bureaucrats created the Federal Bridge Formula, a legal math equation so insanely complex it belongs in a quantum physics textbook. It heavily restricts axle weight to stop old bridges from collapsing. You could be thousands of pounds under your total limit, But if your cargo shifts slightly during a sharp turn, you instantly become a federal lawbreaker at the next scale. It is like a high-stakes game of Tetris where you bet your house. 26. Brutal anti-idling laws in states like New Jersey issue massive fines if an engine runs for more than 3 minutes while parked. Here is the hysterical paradox. Federal regulations strictly mandate drivers sleep in their trucks for hours. So, you are legally forced to live inside a metal box, but totally forbidden from running the engine to use the heater during a freezing blizzard. Would you happily freeze to death in a dark, icy parking lot just to ensure a local city bureaucrat feels warm and fuzzy about saving a few microscopic ounces of diesel emissions? 27. A mechanical breakdown on a pitch-black highway instantly triggers a terrifying federal stopwatch. The law coldly dictates you have exactly 10 minutes to jump out and perfectly place 3 reflective triangles at highly specific distances behind your broken trailer. Even if massive cars are violently swerving past you at 80 miles an hour in freezing rain, you must play a deadly game of Highway Frogger. Miss that strict 10-minute deadline to avoid getting flattened by traffic? You are technically committing a very serious federal offense. 28. Bad architectural design constantly forces drivers to attempt a miracle of physics. Reversing a 70-foot vehicle into a narrow loading dock is hard enough, but terrible warehouses frequently make drivers back in blindly, completely unable to see their actual target. Accidentally scuffing a brick wall during this impossible maneuver? The law places total financial liability entirely on the trucker. There is zero legal defense for a corporate facility having a horrifically designed lot. The driver pays straight out of pocket for an architect's laziness. 29. That cheap plastic radar detector that saves sports car drivers from speeding tickets will actually make a trucker a federal criminal. The law aggressively bans even possessing the device anywhere inside the cab. You could have the detector completely unplugged, turned off, and shoved at the very bottom of a duffel bag under your dirty socks, and an officer can still legally nail you with a catastrophic fine. Why exactly is an unplugged piece of useless plastic treated with the exact same severe legal severity as smuggling actual contraband across borders? 30. Classic trucking movies always feature a rugged driver aggressively swearing over the CB radio. Hilariously, the Federal Communications Commission legally classifies those specific airwaves as a public utility. This means broadcasting profanity, playing loud music, or even whistling loudly is technically a full-blown federal crime. While nobody really enforces it today, an easily offended federal agent could technically bankrupt a driver just for dropping a salty F-bomb during a brutal traffic jam. Imagine getting a federal indictment because you cursed at a pothole. 31. Co-drivers trying to catch some sleep in a moving rig are treated like dangerous cargo. To keep a truck running non-stop, team driving is essential, but federal regulators brilliantly demand the resting driver be tightly strapped into their mattress with a heavy-duty industrial safety net. If an inspector finds the guy peacefully napping without being tangled in this heavy web like a captured tuna, it is a major safety violation. Have you ever tried getting a deep, refreshing sleep while aggressively strapped down to a bouncing, vibrating foam pad? 32. Absolutely forget about casually following Google Maps to a delivery destination. Local cities weave invisible, highly complex webs of legally approved truck routes. Miss one single turn and let those massive tires touch a regular residential street for just 1 block, and local police will instantly ambush you with a $1,000 ticket. You do not even have to hit a mailbox or cause property damage. You are ruthlessly fined simply because your heavy vehicle briefly existed on the wrong type of bureaucratic asphalt. It is basically a toll for getting lost. 33. That thick steel bumper hanging off the back of every trailer is legally required to stop small cars from sliding underneath during a crash. However, federal inspectors measure the precise geometry of this metal bar with absolute psychotic accuracy. If a driver slowly bumps a steep loading dock and slightly bends that steel by a microscopic fraction of an inch, the entire trailer instantly becomes illegal to move. A purely cosmetic, harmless little dent permanently grounds 80,000 pounds of vital freight until a certified welder arrives. 34. disconnect the massive trailer to drive the bear cab for some food, and you enter a vicious regulatory trap called personal conveyance. If a safety auditor later arbitrarily decides your late-night taco run subtly moved the vehicle closer to the next morning's pickup spot, they retroactively classify your dinner trip as illegal commercial driving. Grabbing a cheap burrito magically transforms into a devastating federal hours of service violation that ruins your permanent record. Why on earth is grabbing dinner suddenly treated like a massive federal conspiracy? 35. Mountain weather creates the absolute ultimate legal paradox for innocent truck drivers. Highway patrol strictly mandates slapping heavy steel chains on your tires during a nasty blizzard or facing a crippling fine. However, if the snow randomly melts 2 miles later and those thick chains scratch the bare asphalt before you find a safe shoulder, the state aggressively fines you for destroying public property. You are heavily penalized for not using them, and then ruthlessly prosecuted for actually obeying the law. It is an incredibly expensive trap. 36. Specialized doctors issue the active medical certificates required to maintain any commercial license. Say that tiny piece of paper officially expires at the exact stroke of midnight, and a cop pulls you over at 1 minute past 12. The state instantly downgrades your hard-earned license to a standard car permit. In a single second, you are suddenly legally operating a massive commercial rig without the proper license, triggering absolutely catastrophic fines. Would you want your entire professional career permanently turning into a pumpkin the moment the clock strikes 12? 37. Detach the trailer and drive just the cab, and you enter a legal gray area known as bobtailing. You might logically assume that operating this much smaller vehicle puts you safely under normal car rules, but you would be horribly wrong. Countless scenic parkways aggressively ban commercial vehicles based purely on aesthetics. Zero trailer, zero freight, and completely off-duty trying to reach a cheap motel? Your bear cab is still treated like a massive rolling hazard. You are strictly banned from a public road just because of your vehicle's aristocratic vibe. 38. The most basic, harmless tool in a driver's daily arsenal is constantly treated like a deadly, illegal weapon. Guys hit the rubber with a small wooden club, literally called a tire thumper, to quickly check tire pressure. It is a completely standard industry practice, yet gets stopped in places like New York, and an overzealous cop instantly classifies that simple piece of wood as an illegal billy club. Professional drivers are actually arrested for possessing a blunt force weapon while literally just trying to perform a federally mandated vehicle safety inspection. 39. Escort cars waving bright flags and flashing lights are legally mandatory for transporting massive oversized cargo. The absolute joke here is that neighboring states violently disagree on basic safety colors. Flashing amber lights and bright red flags are legally demanded by one state. The state right next door might ban red flags entirely, strictly enforcing orange ones instead. Truckers actually pull over on the edge of a dangerous interstate just to swap the color of a cheap piece of cloth to avoid thousands in fines. Do different colors really save lives? 40. A normal speeding ticket totally vanishes from your personal record after paying the fine and sitting through a terribly boring defensive driving video. Under the brutal federal trucker system, however, even a tiny written warning for a dim license plate bulb permanently sticks to a driver's safety score for 3 long years. That means a slightly dirty reflector or a $3 piece of dead glass can literally prevent a highly skilled veteran driver from getting a good job. Imagine losing a 6-figure salary purely over a single burnt-out taillight bulb. 41. California politicians proudly enforce a strict 55 mph speed limit for big rigs, while normal cars legally blast past at 70. It sounds like a beautifully progressive safety idea on paper, but it actually turns massive trucks into dangerous rolling roadblocks. This brilliant law instantly creates a terrifying highway slalom course, forcing angry commuters to aggressively swerve around incredibly heavy metal giants. Ironically, by desperately trying to slow down the trucks, oblivious lawmakers generated significantly more dangerous traffic chaos. 42. Federal regulators care deeply about strict highway safety, unless you happen to be transporting angry, buzzing insects. Live bees easily overheat and die if a truck stops moving, so federal law grants these specific drivers a massive legal exemption from standard sleep rules. They are enthusiastically encouraged to just keep driving indefinitely to save the cargo. Does it not absolutely terrify you that the government clearly cares significantly more about a tired little bug than a severely sleep-deprived human operating 80,000 pounds of rolling steel? 43. The moment a driver turns the key to start their day, a completely unforgiving 14-hour federal stopwatch begins ticking. Drivers have exactly 14 hours to finish all their driving tasks, and here is the absolute pure insanity. That clock literally never stops. A lazy warehouse crew makes a driver sit at a dock for 6 hours? That time burns away forever. Instead of simply letting an exhausted guy pause his shift and take a nap, the government forcefully commands him to race against a ticking countdown clock. What could possibly go wrong with that logic? 44. Buy a single six-pack of beer after surviving a brutal 60-hour week on the road, and you instantly become a major federal outlaw. The sleeper berth acts as a trucker's living room, but regulators strictly forbid possessing any alcohol inside a commercial rig. Keys hidden away while you happily watch movies in bed? An unopened can of beer will still destroy your entire career. Does permanently handing over your basic off-the-clock freedom to a federal inspector honestly sound like the ultimate American dream to you? It is an absolute unbelievable joke. 45. Every single commercial rig must clearly display its federal registration number on the door. But instead of dictating a specific font size in inches, the law vaguely demands the numbers must be highly contrasting and perfectly legible from exactly 50 feet away. This essentially means your legal compliance entirely depends on the personal vision quality of whichever random trooper pulls you over. If the cop simply forgot his prescription reading glasses on the kitchen counter that morning, congratulations, you are suddenly a highly dangerous commercial criminal. 46. Obsessive modern food safety laws dictate that a trailer hauling sealed boxes of fresh apples yesterday must be certifiably sanitized before carrying dry paper towels today. Producing a physical piece of paper proving the metal box was professionally washed is mandatory. Lose that single flimsy receipt, and the receiving warehouse legally rejects the entire shipment of non-perishable goods. One missing signature literally turns thousands of dollars of perfectly fine freight into toxic waste. Does a roll of toilet paper honestly require a surgically sterile environment? 47. The incredibly deceptive parkway system makes navigating New York a complete geographical nightmare for commercial rigs. Designed decades ago for leisurely Sunday drives, these scenic roads feature stone bridges built deliberately low. Foolishly trusting a standard car GPS means you will be legally banned from the road just seconds before a beautiful antique bridge violently peels the entire roof off your trailer like a cheap tin can. The local municipality strictly outlaws the heavy trucks, but the ancient architecture violently executes the brutal, unforgiving penalty. 48. Those angry signs screaming about no engine brakes outside small towns are an American highway staple. Descending steep hills requires activating a loud system to safely slow the massive rig without instantly incinerating the wheel brakes. The catch? It sounds precisely like a heavy machine gun. Local noise ordinances essentially demand that truckers risk catastrophic brake failure and turning into an unstoppable 80,000-pound missile, purely so a neighborhood association can sleep soundly. Whose life are you genuinely willing to risk for a quiet night? It turns out driving an 18-wheeler means navigating a daily minefield of bureaucratic extortion. Tell me the brutal truth. Do you think truck drivers are the most exploited workers in America, or do they absolutely deserve these strict rules to keep us safe? Drop your opinion in the comments right now. Do not forget to smash the like button and subscribe so you never miss a video.